All right, today we are diving deep into one of the heaviest, most influential ideas in Western thought, John Calvin's doctrine of original sin. It's this idea that we're all, fundamentally broken right from birth. And believe me, this concept has shaped everything from our laws to how we see ourselves. So let's get right into it. Know thyself. We've all heard that, right? It's this ancient command that's been echoing for centuries. And we usually assume that if we just look inward, we'll find our strengths, our potential, and build a better life. But what if a truly honest look at ourselves reveals something deeply uncomfortable? That's really the question we have to start with. And this is exactly where John Calvin basically throws a grenade into centuries of philosophy. Just look at these two paths. For ages, philosophers were telling us, look inside, find your inner greatness. But Calvin comes along and says, no, true self-knowledge starts when you recognize your own miserable condition. It is a massive contrast, isn't it? One path leads to pride, but the other, Calvin says, leads to a kind of brutal but absolutely necessary humility. And that brings us to the core paradox in Calvin's thinking. For him, looking inward isn't supposed to be a feel-good exercise. He argues that a genuine, unflinching self-examination should completely strip you of all your confidence. It should reveal just how inadequate you are. And it's only then, when you've hit that rock bottom, that you're finally ready to look for help from somewhere else entirely. So how do you actually do this? Well, Calvin lays out this two-step mental exercise. First, you have to consider our origin. Think about the ideal, what humanity was meant to be, created with all these noble gifts. And then, step two, contrast that ideal with the reality of our current abilities, or really our lack of them. For Calvin, it's in that massive, humbling gap between those 2 points, that's where real wisdom starts. So that huge gap between who we were supposed to be and who we are now, well, it exists because of one single catastrophic event, the fall. But to really grasp the consequences, we have to see it as something way bigger than just a story about eating an apple. And Calvin does not mince words here. He finds the whole idea that this giant mess started because Adam was just a bit hungry to be, and this is a direct quote, childish. For him, the apple wasn't the problem. It was just a symptom of a much, much deeper sickness. Let's actually break down the anatomy of that first sin. The act of eating the fruit, that wasn't the start. That was the last domino to fall. The real rebellion was all internal. It started with unfaithfulness, a complete loss of trust in what God said. And from there, it metastasized into pride and ambition, this desire to be God's equal. The actual disobedience, that was just the final, inevitable result of what was already happening inside. And this quote right here gets to the absolute heart of the matter. For Calvin, unfaithfulness was the poisoned root. The second that trust was broken, the entire system was just doomed to collapse. But here's where it gets really sticky. Adam's fall wasn't just some personal mistake with personal consequences. No, Calvin argues it was a cataclysm. It fundamentally corrupted human nature itself and then passed that corruption down to every single person who would ever live. And this brings us to his formal definition, original sin. It's not just a bad thing we do, it's a hereditary depravity. You got to pay attention to those keywords. It's hereditary, like eye color. It's a corruption, and it's diffused into all parts of the soul. It's a condition we are literally born with. Now, to make this super clear, Calvin was arguing against another popular idea at the time. A theologian named Pelagius suggested that sin spreads by imitation. Adam just set a bad example, and we all choose to follow it. But Calvin's view, propagation, is radically different. He says we don't learn sin, we're born into it. It's inborn, because human nature itself got corrupted. I think this quote is amazing because it just makes the whole idea so vivid. This isn't about copying a bad move. It's about a fundamental rottenness at the very root of the human tree, a rottenness that automatically gets transmitted to every single branch and twig that grows from it. So get this. This isn't about being legally blamed for a crime someone else committed thousands of years ago. Calvin's point is that we've inherited a literal contagion that resides inside us. And this is probably the most radical part. It's why he argues that even a newborn baby, who's never done anything wrong, is already carrying this seed of sin within its soul. So if we have this contagion inside of us, how far does it reach? Well, for Calvin, the answer is simple, and it's stark. It reaches everywhere. No part of us is left untouched. This visual really shows just how total that takeover is. See, this isn't just about our baser instincts or our flesh. For Calvin, sin infects our highest faculties. It clouds our mind, it enslaves our will, it depraves our heart. There's no part of us that gets a free pass.
And Calvin drives his point home with another really powerful image, a deluge, a flood. He says sin has overwhelmed us from head to foot, leaving no high ground, no safe spot, no part of our being immune from its effects.
And this is absolutely crucial. This corrupted nature of ours isn't passive. It's not just sitting there. It's an active, dynamic force. Calvin compares it to a burning furnace that is constantly shooting off flames and sparks. It is, in his own words, fertile and fruitful of every evil, constantly producing sinful thoughts, words, and actions. Okay, so after hearing all of this, you might be thinking, wait a minute, did God create us evil then? That's a logical question, and this is where Calvin makes one final, absolutely vital distinction to stop that misunderstanding in its tracks. He makes this critical distinction between our original nature and our current state. Think of it like a brand new computer that was designed perfectly, but then it got a nasty virus. Now that virus is natural to the computer's operation, it affects everything it does, but it was never part of the original design. For Calvin, our corruption is that virus. It's an adventitious quality, something extra that was added later. And so, he lands the plane with this firm conclusion. Our destruction, Calvin says, is our own fault. It comes from us, from humanity, because we degenerated from our original good condition. The responsibility doesn't lie with God, who created our nature, but with us, who corrupted it. And this is the profound and pretty unsettling place that Calvin leaves us. Because if he's right, if our very nature is corrupted from head to toe, what hope can there possibly be for true goodness? How can you ever escape a prison when the prison is your own mind? It's a dilemma that sits at the very heart of his entire theology and, well, it's a question that we're left to grapple with.